If you ever want proof that football careers are not linear, that the same player can look like a nice but inconsistent winger in one environment and then go on to look genuinely world-class in another, well, you don't even need to dig into old archives because we have a perfect case study of this in real time with Raphinha. Just picture this contrast. Only a few years ago, one version of Raphinha was in England, in a Leeds shirt, with a club that at the time was basically living week to week, trying to survive. Every match felt like an argument with gravity. Every point feels like oxygen. And on the final day, Leeds started in the relegation zone, knowing one mistake could send them down. They went away to Brentford, they won 2-1, and that win kept them in the Premier League. Raphinha scored in that game, and it became one of those moments where you can literally see what survival means to players and fans, because it's not theoretical, it's your whole season in one afternoon. Now fast forward to the current day. The other version of Raphinha is now at Barcelona, not just at Barcelona in the vague sense of being a squad player who rotates in and out. I mean central, decisive, the guy producing numbers that forced the entire conversation to change, the guy winning major trophies, being named the league's player of the season, finishing 5th in Ballon d'Or voting, captaining the team, and genuinely looking like one of the most important players in European football. And that's what makes this story so fascinating, because it isn't a typical big club signs talented winger does well narrative. This is a story about context, role, mentality, and the difference between being a lifeboat for a relegation threatened side to them being a spearhead for one of the biggest clubs on earth. So let's talk about how Raphinha went from the chaos of Leeds' survival fight to leading Barcelona. Because that leap is not as simple as he joined a better team. It's about how his game matured, how his responsibilities evolved, and how Barcelona, at a time when they've been desperate for consistent winners, ended up with a player who gradually turned into the heartbeat of their attack. Back at Leeds, you could already see the raw ingredients. He wasn't some luxury winger floating around waiting for the ball to arrive in a perfect pocket of space. Leeds were chaotic, often stretched, and frequently defending without control. That means if you're an attacker in that team, you either accept invisibility or you learn how to create solutions in broken phases. Raphinha did the second one. He became the outlet. He became the player who could take the ball under pressure, carry it up the pitch, win fouls, create something from nothing, and still contribute real end product. And the stats reflect that. In the Premier League alone, he put up strong goal and assist totals across his Leeds seasons, including 11 league goals in 2021/22, the season where Leeds were fighting for their lives. But here's the key thing. Being that guy for a relegation side is not the same as being that guy for Barcelona. At Leeds, if he tried something and it didn't come off, the team could reset into chaos and try again. The expectations were survival, not domination. At Barcelona, however, you don't necessarily get rewarded for being exciting alone. You get rewarded for being decisive. You get punished for wasting possessions. And you live inside a tactical microscope where every decision gets measured against the standards set by legends. The standards are far higher. So when Barcelona signed him from Leeds in the summer of 2022, for a fee reported around the €58 million mark plus add-ons, it wasn't just a step up in club size, it was a step into a completely different type of pressure. A baptism of fire for a player that we mustn't forget at the time was questioned by Barcelona fans for even signing in the first place. And the early period at Barcelona, this is where the story actually becomes more interesting, because this is the part people forget when they only look at today. There was a time where Raphinha's Barcelona career felt like it could go either way. Not because he lacked quality, but because the role wasn't fully his yet. The system wasn't built around him. And Barcelona were in one of those eras where they were constantly trying to rediscover their identity while also trying to win immediately. In his first couple of seasons at Barcelona, Raphinha was largely viewed as a useful but frustrating player rather than a cornerstone of the project. After arriving from Leeds in 2022, he posted respectable numbers in his debut season and contributed to the LaLiga title. But his performances were inconsistent and rarely dominant, often defined by high work rate, erratic decision-making, and moments of end product rather than sustained control of games. Under Xavi, he was primarily used as a touchline winger in a rigid positional system that didn't always suit his instincts, and frequent substitutions reinforced the perception that he wasn't fully trusted as a game-changer. In other words, you can be a very good player and still look inconsistent if the team around you doesn't give you a stable platform. But then the transformation happens. And to explain why the transformation happened, you need to understand what changed about Raphinha's function inside Barcelona's attack. Because in his breakout season, it's not just that he started scoring more, it's how he started scoring more and what that says about his development. Barcelona themselves basically put it in black and white. In 2024/25, he exploded into end product territory, scoring 34 goals and creating 22 assists in 57 appearances. That is not good winger numbers. That's elite forward production. That's the type of output that turns you from being judged as a signing into being treated as a cornerstone. He was named LaLiga Player of the Season as Barcelona won a domestic treble, LaLiga, Copa del Rey, and the Spanish Super Cup, while also highlighting his Champions League output and how pivotal he was across the campaign. So what actually happened here? The simple version is, he went from being a winger who contributes to being a forward who decides games. The deeper version is, Barcelona found a way to turn his intensity, his directness, and his work rate into a reliable system of chance creation and chance finishing. Raphinha's best traits have always been slightly uncomfortable traits for defenders. He doesn't play like a winger who's just trying to look smooth. He plays like a winger who's trying to hurt you. He sprints at full backs with purpose. He attacks the back post aggressively. He arrives in scoring zones like a second striker. And crucially, he plays with the emotional urgency of someone who never expects the game to slow down for him. That mindset is a superpower at the top level, because when big teams get stuck in sterile domination, when they have the ball but not the bite, players like Raphinha are the ones who keep the attack honest. They force action, and then add the off-ball side, because to become most important player territory at a club like Barcelona, it's not enough to be productive. You have to have an ego, you have to have confidence and swagger. And most importantly, you have to be trusted. You have to set standards. You have to be the guy who plays like the badge matters, even when you're not having a perfect game. And this is where the leadership angle becomes real, rather than just a vibe. There have been multiple points where Raphinha has taken on responsibility and been framed publicly as a leader in that dressing room environment, including moments where he consoled a downbeat Hansi Flick, when he's worn the armband, when he set the tone of the match through his performances on the field, and even when injured, being discussed as someone taking on a leadership role around the squad. That matters because Barcelona is not a club where captain material is handed out lightly. It's a club where you either carry pressure or pressure carries you out. Let's put it like this. If you don't have the minerals to lead at Barcelona, they won't just give you the armband. And once you understand that, the Ballon d'Or conversation makes more sense. Because Ballon d'Or talk is rarely just about pure ability. It's about narrative, output, trophies, and importance. Raphinha's 2024/25 season becomes the perfect storm of those things. Massive production, major trophies, and public recognition, including a reported 5th place finish in Ballon d'Or voting. In 2024/25, you're looking at 57 matches, 34 goals, 22 assists, and an elite average rating. But now, for this current 2025/26 season, so far, you're looking at 21 matches, 13 goals, 5 assists for the Brazilian, in addition to him spearheading the final win in the Spanish Super Cup against Real Madrid just a few weeks ago. That's the key point. When a player hits a purple patch, the numbers tend to crash back down quickly. But when a player hits a new level, like what Raphinha has, the numbers keep appearing because the role is now permanent. And you can see that even in the way Barcelona talk about him, framing that season as a breakout under Hansi Flick and tying his output directly to the way the team functions. Even in big European nights, he's still contributing. What we're dealing here with Raphinha isn't some flashy-in-the-pan one-season wonder phenomenon. No, Raphinha has now consistently elevated his game to being one of the best players in the world. So when you step back and you look at the arc, this is why the story of Raphinha is inspiring. Because it's not just player improves, it's the extreme juxtaposition of what his football life looked like. At a relegation fighting Leeds, he was the lifeline. But now at Barcelona, he has become their leader. At Leeds, he was fighting relegation, playing inside volatility, trying to rescue a season that could collapse. At Barcelona, he's fighting for trophies, fighting for titles, and he's one of the players setting the standard of not only the team, but also what a world-class winger is supposed to be. Some players move to a big club and shrink because the environment asks them to be perfect. Raphinha moved to a big club and expanded because the environment finally gave his intensity a platform big enough to matter. And that's why it's not crazy to talk about him the way people are now talking about him. Not as a good winger from Leeds who made it, but as one of the most decisive forwards in Europe, and a player who went from relegation anxiety to Ballon d'Or conversation without changing who he is. He just changed the scale of the stage. And if Barcelona want to keep building a team that doesn't just look talented but actually behaves like a champion team again, players like Raphinha are the template. Relentless, direct, productive, and emotionally wired to treat every match like it matters. Because he's lived both ends of football. He's lived the final day survival fight, and now he's living the business end of trophies. That's not a glow-up, that's a career transformation.